Hi guys, I hope you're good. In my last video you saw me exploring the Caledonian Canal from Fort William all the way to Inverness. In that video I made a stop at Urquhart Castle on the shores of Loch Ness. Let me tell you a bit more about the castle. Urquhart Castle is a ruined castle that was built between the 13th and the 16th centuries. The castle was built on the site of an earlier fortification. Several times the castle was raided by the MacDonald clan. It then became a royal castle, and in 1509 it was given to the Grant clan, who did a lot of building work, but also let much of the older parts of the castle fall into disrepair. The castle was defended by a ditch and a drawbridge, and being on the water I thought it should have been a huge advantage, but the MacDonalds continued to invade Urquhart, managing to do so from the water, so obviously it was a weak point. In the late 1600s, the castle was partially destroyed so that the Jacobite forces couldn't use it, and then in the 20th century it was given to the care of the state, and it's clear just how much work has gone into restoring it and making it one of Scotland's most visited castles. To be honest, this wouldn't usually have been my thing, and I only stopped here to get some shots of Loch Ness, but I ended up spending ages here. It was so interesting and so much bigger than I was expecting. After leaving my accommodation in Fort William, I headed far, far north. But first, I made a stop to see some magic. These are the famous fairy pools on the Isle of Skye. Overlooked by the Cuillin Mountains, the River Brittle falls over the mountain in a series of waterfalls into the pools. This was also the site of a huge battle between the long-feuding MacLeod and MacDonald clans. The feud came to a head after a failed marriage and an incident with a one-eyed horse. You definitely should read that story. The ensuing battle was so bloody that the Crown intervened and made the clans declare a truce. Once I'd warmed up, I explored more of the island. Skye is the largest of the Inner Hebrides, with a population of 10,000. In the early 19th century, there were twice as many people living on Skye. Skye was quite different from what I was expecting. It was much bigger, much more rugged and bleak. I don't mean that in a bad way, and I would definitely like to come back and do some hill walking. Unfortunately, there wasn't to be much hill walking on this trip. I'd done something pretty painful to my ankle on the West Highland Way, so I was taking things easy. But I was very lucky to see an eagle, a sight that's going to stay with me for a very long time. It's definitely more of a summer destination because between the middle of October and the end of March, a lot of places were closed. From Skye, I headed for John O'Groats. Now, before you all rush to the comments, I know that John O'Groats isn't the northernmost point of mainland Britain. That's Dunnet Head, which I drove past but didn't stop at because it was covered in fog and rain. John O'Groats is the big tourist attraction because it's at the end of the longest road trip you can do on the island of Britain, from Land's End to John O'Groats. And I wanted to do the touristy thing and have my photo at the famous sign. Hopefully at some point I'll get my photo at Land's End too. John O'Groats is really close to Thurso, mainland Britain's northernmost town. On a good day you can see across to the Orkney Islands, apparently. Thurso was an important Norse port, and from the remains of bunkers and Dragon's Teeth anti-tank barriers dotted along the beach, it was obviously of tactical importance during the Second World War. Something that struck me during my time in the Highlands was the sheer number of war memorials I came across. The proportion of Highland men who died in the World Wars was really high. As much as I love my week walking the West Highland Way, spending the next week on the road was just what I needed. I got to see so much. I could pull over whenever I wanted, or just keep going and take in all the views. That is the biggest flock of geese I have ever seen. Crikey Mikey. Everywhere I went, and everyone I met was so welcoming. Each place I visited was my new favourite place, and if I didn't have to go back to work, I think I'd still be in Scotland now. But all too soon, I was back across the border and on my way back to real life. There was time for one more stop before the long drive home. This is the holy island of Lindisfarne in the northeast of England. The island is connected to the mainland by a tidal causeway. This is the Lindisfarne Priory, founded by St. Aidan in the 6th century. Aidan was an Irish monk who brought Christianity to Northumbria. The island is also home to a castle built in 1550. The tide times are clearly displayed at either end of the causeway, and if you time it right, you wouldn't have to rush off after an hour like I did. But that all adds to the sense of adventure. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon.